I'm Brent Clapp. I'm the owner of LeGrandAlive.tv and Brent Clapp Media Services here in LeGrand. And I want to tell you a Christmas story. When I moved here in late 90s, Safeway was getting ready to build a new store. And they built the store, it was beautiful. We're all aware of where it's at now. And I remember one Christmas as I was going into that Safeway store, there was a Salvation Army bell ringer, and we all go past the bell ringers all the time. The thing that caught my attention this particular time is that he was singing Christmas carols. And it just warmed my heart. It just caught my attention. And at the same time, God spoke to my heart. And he said, you know, you could do that. You could sing sometime like that. Now, when God talks to me, it's not an audible voice. It's just this hunch that you can't get away from. It's this constant prodding. And, you know, it was kind of a combination of God and my mom, because you see, I grew up singing as a kid. And my mom would always say to us three kids, you know, God has given you a gift, and he wants you to use it in order to make other people's lives better and to bring joy to other people. So this combination of God and mom, you know, prompted my heart. And at the time, I just passed it off. It's like, oh, that's silly. You know, why would I do that? I mean, I grew up singing in the living rooms of my relatives, and it's hard to do. It's embarrassing because it's so close. And what could possibly be more close and embarrassing than people going in and out of a store and you singing to them? So anyhow, I just dismissed that. Well, a few years later, in 2005 and beyond, I was just going through an awful time in my life. I was going through a divorce and had lost my job and my occupation. All of those things by choices of my own that I had made. And the destruction of my own choices was just everywhere around me. It was a time in my life when it would have been a lot easier and would have made a lot more sense had I left LeGrand and moved somewhere and started somewhere over. But my son Brady at that time was in his mid-teens, and he needed a father close to him. And I was determined to live close to him in order to be the father that he needed. But the fact is that I was starting over in my life. I was working construction. I was totally outside of anything that was a part of my college experience or training, and I was just trying to survive. And right in the middle of this, God was reminding me, hey, that thing that I asked you to do all those years ago, you still haven't done. And I was asking God, I was like, why does this make any difference? Why are you asking me to do such a silly thing? Don't you know that I have embarrassed myself in front of my family and in front of my community? And you're asking me to potentially embarrass myself more. This is the conversation that I was having with God. And finally, I just broke down. And it was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And several weeks before Christmas, I had decided, okay, this is the Christmas that I'm going to do it. And, you know, wouldn't you know it, I put it off until Christmas Eve. And sure enough, Christmas Eve, it's a blizzard. The wind is blowing like crazy. And it was a very inconvenient time to finally be obedient. And it reminded me of all of those times that, you know, there's a lot of times that if we just are obedient at first, it's easier for us to do. And that was exactly the situation. Now it was the worst possible time. It was cold. And so finally I decided, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it in front of Albertsons because they're not quite as busy as Safeway. Well, so I got to Albertsons about 15 minutes before they closed. I don't know, it must have been 5:45 or something like that. And I started singing. And it was funny, you know, people's reaction, they really didn't know what to do. Here I am singing. I didn't have a bucket for them to give to, you know. they kind of look at me like, why are you doing this? And some of them would even ask, and I'd say, well, I don't know. It's just what I think I'm supposed to do, and maybe it brings you a little bit of joy tonight. And so Albertsons closed, and I thought, well, I'm not sure what to do. And so I thought, well, this has been kind of fun. I've watched the joy. I've watched those people experience the joy, the same joy that I had experienced all those years ago when somebody had been singing to me when I was coming in and out of a store. And I thought, well, maybe I'll go over to Safeway and do it over there. And so, again, it's just so awkward when you first get out of the car, and I make my way there and I start singing. And I had written the words of the Christmas carols and stuff on sheets of paper, and the reactions of people was just amazing. I'd have people come up, and total strangers would just give me a hug, and they say, oh, thank you for singing to us on Christmas Eve. I had, a couple of people that would sing the Christmas carols with me. Finally, I took a break, and I went back to the car. And on my way back to the car, a man stopped me. He had tears rolling down his face, and he said, I saw you over at Albertsons, and I followed you over here to Safeway. I'm not sure why you're doing this tonight, but I need you to know that you're a blessing to me tonight. And it was just incredibly affirming that in my obedience to God, God was using me to bless someone else. And, I don't know if that's happened to you. There are lots of times when God will ask me to do things for other people, and I'm a very imperfect person. I'm an imperfect vessel, and it's embarrassing and humbling when God uses you in spite of yourself to bless other people. The thing that was bigger that happened that night when I finally was obedient was that it was the beginning of some really good things in my life. You see, I felt like my life was just barren. It was a blackened field that was burnt. There was just so little goodness around me. And me choosing to be obedient that particular time, as I look back on that chapter in my life, it was the beginning of God doing new and great things in my life. And I could tell you the story, one story after another, of at the point where I was obedient, God blessed me in an incredible way. And then it took me to the next place where he wanted me to be obedient. And I was obedient there. And God began to bring great things into my life. I don't think God is the kind of God that is just waiting for me to do the right thing. He's not punishing me until I do what he wants me to do. He's blessing me because I made decisions in my life that were good for me. And that's exactly why I'm telling this story now, is God has been prompting me for about the last month to tell this story to you. This is the beginning of a series that we're going to be doing here at La Grande Alive called In Their Own Words. And God wanted me to tell you this story. Now, I don't know where you are right now. I don't know who you are. I don't know who might watch this. But I would ask you that during this Christmas season, would you consider that maybe there's someone bigger than you or I? And would you consider that he has good things for your life? I want to tell you, I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a great New Year.